Hello everyone, Rorius here, with a one-off, quick developer commentary video to complement the earlier one. I thought I'd go for Valve's very first developer commentary game, or, first game that they put developer commentary into. It's not even really a full game, it's a free sort of demo for Episode 1, and that is Half-Life 2 Lost Coast. Yeah, so let's get straight into it. Yeah, there's going to be at least one node that's going to talk about how the nodes work.
Hi, this is Gabe Newell, and welcome to the Lost Coast. In this tour, we're going to be talking about a new graphics technology we've been developing called High Dynamic Range, or HDR. We'll also be giving you some insight into the design and production challenges we faced during the construction of the Lost Coast. First, a quick explanation of the commentary system. To listen to a commentary node, put your crosshair over the floating commentary symbol and press your use key. To stop the commentary, put your crosshair over the rotating node and press your use key again. Some commentary nodes may take control of the game for the purpose of showing something to you. In these cases, simply pressing your use key will stop the commentary.
Yeah, interestingly, this was before they developed the new commentary nodes. These ones are like little paper. They're sort of designed to look like 2D speech bubbles. They changed it a bit in the later games, and they've kept it like that as far as I'm aware in all the games since. So
With conventional rendering, seen here on the left, if something on the screen is 20% reflective, like the wet sand, then the maximum reflected brightness could only be 20% of the maximum brightness of your monitor. HDR's more accurate simulation of light ensures that the sun's reflection on this wet sand appears as it would in the real world, which could potentially use 100% of the maximum monitor brightness. HDR uses bloom to simulate light that is beyond 100% of a monitor's maximum brightness.
Yeah. So yeah, this was brand new technology back when this game was coming out. I don't know if any other games had anything like this when they were working on Lost Coast. Well, when they're working on Episode 1, Lost Coast being... interestingly, Lost Coast is a... They might actually talk about it in one of the nodes. It was going to be an area in Half-Life 2, one of the earlier areas that they had developed that, of course, got cut in the final product. But yeah, this whole Lost Coast area is just a reused asset. Once again, Valve's very well known for doing that kind of thing. Right here, get my magnum out. I'm gonna keep my crowbar.
The remains of the ship in front of you were once part of a puzzle we cut out of the Lost Coast. The original design of the puzzle was based on the idea of the player and the fisherman cooperating together to solve something. This was the type of puzzle we'd always wanted to attempt in Half-Life 2. Unfortunately, as development on Lost Coast neared the end, and this puzzle still wasn't finished, we decided to cut it. It's always painful to remove work, so we've tried to evolve a process for making those kinds of decisions. For example, with this puzzle we asked ourselves, is this puzzle actually fun? If not, how much work does it need to be fun? Does this puzzle fit within the purpose of Lost Coast? Would our customers appreciate this puzzle being finished more than they would appreciate, say, soldiers rappelling off the cliffside? In the end, it made more sense to put this problem on the shelf with other interesting ideas and come back to it later.
Yeah, so that is a thing that's quite a thing to have to deal with, is the idea of cutting stuff. And I know Valve is very much of the mindset that if they can, they will reuse something that they've had. That's something that they were working on. They'll reuse it elsewhere if they're, if suddenly that becomes, usable or conceivably usable or fun or whatever in the context of a different scenario, in a different context, I guess.
When the art team started to think about a location that would demonstrate the power of HDR, a beach was one of the first choices we made. The visual relationship between the sky, the water, and the rocks is something we could not achieve without HDR. In order for high dynamic range to correctly simulate the light's interaction with the surfaces around it, like these wet rocks, we needed more precise information about the surfaces than we've had in the past. And now going forward, we're modeling textures in 3D packages to ensure that the physical information encoded in the texture allows HDR to correctly bounce light off the surface. We also designed the colors and values of each surface to ensure they will be correct across all exposure levels.
Yeah. So this demo, I guess, is going to be full of a lot of the sort of more technical, graphicsy kind of jargon and terminology. Sorry for anyone who's not into that. I could see why some people might not be into that.
The process of building characters in Half-Life 2 taught us many things. By the end, we believed we'd figured out a more effective process for designing and constructing characters. This fisherman is the first character we built using that process. Design-wise, the fisherman was focused on showcasing HDR and the way light falls on human skin. The highlights on his forehead and nose are good examples of specularity on human skin. You can see how the wrinkles on his cheeks and around his eyes are an example of how we can use normal maps to add depth. Production-wise, the fisherman was built using a similar process to the rocks you saw on the beach. We model the 3D character at a very high detail, then extract much of the physical information and store it in the textures.
Hey, you there? Wait a minute now, aren't you? You are. You're that scientist chap, Friedman, Fishman.
Friedman.
Right? You must be here to take on the Combine. Not sure what one man
I love
can
that
do,
visual.
but no other reason to visit St. Olga at a time like this. I'll take you to where they made their base, or as far as I can, at any rate.
Yeah. So yeah, this demo is all about showing off all of their new developments that they had made to the Source engine between Half-Life 2 and the first episode.
Here, now, let me just unlock this gate for you.
I like how he puts
Got
this
the
down
key
and just
right
drops
here.
it.
There we go.
You can use that as...
Destroy that gun and no dawdling.
You can use this as like a physics weapon to shoot at things.
Go on through, lad.
Well, listen to the node now.
Water presents us with a lot of rendering challenges. In fact, we have to render the scene 3 times.
1 second, okay. You're not going to be able to see that.
Destroy that gun and no dawdling.
Okay, there we go.
Water presents us with a lot of rendering challenges. In fact, we have to render the scene 3 times. Once for the refraction of what's under the water, once for the reflection of everything above the water, and once from the player's view. You can see the reflection and refraction scenes in the 2 small windows on screen. In the refraction, we calculate per pixel how much water you're looking through to do a volumetric underwater fog to simulate particulate
That's
matter.
the lower one there.
For our full HDR solution, we had to go through the entire engine and modify every bit of code that calculated light and color. For example, these water reflection and refraction renderings had to be improved to support the full range of contrast values.
Yeah, that's a really interesting viewpoint there. Oh, wrong one. There we go. Yeah, I have a few key bindings for my camera, but different games require different settings. This is one of the games I can quickly switch my camera around.
If you make it back safely,
Shush.
I'll be here waiting for you.
Shush. Okay, I'm just gonna go up ahead so he stops talking. But yeah, so it's really interesting to see like the views of what that second, I believe, what the very top view was showing was everything that's under the water. And so basically everything that needs to be modified by refraction, by water refraction. Yeah, I'm going to assume that everyone knows physics and doesn't need to have that explained. And then the secondary view was the volumetric fog, as he mentioned, showing how they were to generate the volumetric fog for the water. Really interesting, and something that even I don't really fully understand. Well, I understand why and what, but how. I just don't understand how. Yeah, so there's a little village over there, but it's fairly low poly. You're not really supposed to look at it too much, in too much depth. I think I'm going the... No, I'm not. I was going to say, I think I'm going the right way too early, but no. Wrong way. Damn it. It's weird not having iron sights. I'm so used to looking down my iron sights. Yeah. And there's also, I believe, things like, oh god, that's right. They went for, like, Did they put a smoke? Yeah, they put some smoke billowing out from behind the buildings there. Yeah, I think there was also... Was there other developments? I mean, they'll talk about it. I don't need to talk
The area
about
you're
it.
currently entering is called the Cliffside Arena. We were particularly happy with the vertical cliffside in Half-Life 1, and regretted that we didn't iterate further on that concept in Half-Life 2.
Yeah.
Vertical space allows us to force the player to deal with threats from above and below. We find that players focus their view on the direction they're traveling, so by using a cliffside and having the player ascend it, we ensure that the
They
player
look
will
up.
look up and be prepared for enemies. If the player's path was to move past the bottom of the cliffside, it would be unlikely he would notice soldiers rappelling down from above. And dying from unknown threats never feels fair and certainly isn't fun.
Yeah. Oh. You bastard. Yeah, no matter what you do, this bridge always gets destroyed. There's actually no guy up there. Well, I think they spawn in a guy. They might spawn in a guy, but by default there isn't actually a guy up there. Oh god, he ducked. He ducked right as I shot. I think the game difficulty is set to easy though. There he is. Oh god, I can't freaking see my crosshair. There we go. It's so light colored that I can't freaking see it. So yeah, they do that not intentionally. I think this whole structure is actually breakable. Well, a lot of it is. A whole lot of the structure is actually breakable. Yeah, there we go. Oh, a whole lot more of it than I thought. Yeah, this whole staircase is destructible. Damn. So I don't have the arc down anymore. Yeah. Yeah, we listened to this just a second ago. And so this is where he's talking about people, yeah, the soldiers rappelling down the cliff face. Which is something they added into episode 1. Yeah, in Half-Life 2 there was no sort of rappelling. There were some guys like who would hop down spaces, but there was no like rappelling, so to speak. They added a whole lot of like, there's a scene where there's a whole lot of guys rappelling down. Oh god. Oh, nope. It blew up somewhere else. Yeah, I'm just trying to use a plethora of different weapons. Yeah. I don't think we've missed anything. I don't think we've missed a node. Mr. Node. That's dumb. That's a really dumb joke. Oh. Yeah, I think what I was gonna say before was I think the settings. I think I forgot to change any settings. I think it's still set to easy mode, so that's why they're all dying so quickly. Anyone who is wondering why. I would normally play games like, oh, I wonder. Yeah! Got that one right. Yeah, normally I would play Half-Life 2 just on normal. Previously I had tried, like, higher difficulties. I tried playing the game on, oh, that's back the way I came, never mind. I had played Half-Life 2. I actually always play Half-Life 1 on hard difficulty, just because the unforgiving nature feels right. I don't know if it's just because I'm so used to playing it hard, and so that anything easier just feels weird and off. But I always play Half-Life 1 on hard mode. But Half-Life 2 just unsatisfying. I find the game quite unsatisfying on hard difficulty. Just because the enemies often tend to feel like bullet sponges instead of challenging. I don't know.
One of the features of our HDR solution is
one.
dynamic tone mapping. The easiest way to think about dynamic tone mapping is that it's a method of simulating the way the human eye reacts to light. In the real world, you've probably walked into a dark room and noticed your eye adjusting to the darkness, letting you see better
I don't know
after
why
some
that's
time.
not.
Or you've walked out into a bright day and been blinded by the sun, only to have your eye adjust and allow you to see normally. Your iris is adjusting itself in response to the amount of light hitting your eye. Dynamic tone mapping simulates this by automatically adjusting the exposure of the scene to mimic the behavior of your iris. You can see this as the view moves from the dark tunnel to the bright sun and back again.
Yeah.
Here, you can see the way we calculate the amount of light hitting the player's eyes. We take a snapshot of the scene, measure the brightness levels, and then use that to adjust exposure. We consider light at the center of the screen more important than at the edges to better simulate the geometry of the eye.
Yeah. So it's just a really cool little gizmo they added to the screen for that node, just to purely to show you how that works. Now that was node 9, and this one was node 7, wasn't it?
The area you're currently in.
Yeah. So, did I miss one, or is the 8 ahead? Because I know there are some places where nodes aren't in numerical order. Okay, I had to look backwards and I couldn't see anything. So let's move forward. Fingers crossed this is 8.
The courtyard in front of you is a space we call an arena. Arenas are built to hold the player for a period of time, and usually contain combat or some other challenge. They often have multiple entry points for enemies, along with a gate of some kind to prevent the player moving on, until the challenge has been completed. In this case, the arena is free of enemies until the player solves a puzzle and triggers an alarm. This is a method that allows the player to explore the arena and get a sense of its space before being forced to fight in it. It adds a sense of uneasiness to the player, who's expecting to be attacked now that they've reached the goal set for them at the start of the map. The break in the action here is also a crucial part of the level's pacing. It allows the player to recover and explore the world a little after being attacked on the way up the cliffside.
Yeah, so that kind of like pacing, spacing stuff is really important. They talk about that at length, as far as I recall, in episode 1, I think, because they talked a lot about Half-Life 2 in the episode 1 developer commentary as well, and so they talked a lot about sort of pacing and the way that they designed areas in Half-Life 2. And in this case, yeah, this is what I was talking when I talked about there being an arena in like this one of the secrets in Doom, in the very first stage of Doom. There's a secret area. I wonder if can I fall down here? No, okay. There's a secret area that's a big square space, and from the map, from just what I could see on the map, I called it an arena. I said, oh, that looks like an arena, and this is the kind of thing that I'm referring to when I'm speaking about an arena. It's an open space, usually that is closed off from exit, and has some space or some way for the enemy to get in.
The source engine supports a wide variety of shaders. The refraction shader on the window here requires us to copy the scene to a texture, refract it, and then apply it to the window surface. Yeah. To fully support HDR, every shader in the engine needed to be updated. So this refraction shader was improved to support the full range of contrast. If you viewed the sun through this window, it would be refracted correctly.
That's really interesting, actually. Yeah, because actually, they were talking about it in Portal 2. They had to change that. This is the system that they were using at first in Portal 2 for Portal-related stuff, but they had to change it to a very different system because that was just I can't forget if it was too taxing or if it was just not achieving the effect that they wanted. What the hell? There's a grate on this that disappears when I walk over here. Reappears when I walk close to it. That's funny. Right.
We wanted to transition from a bright, wide open space into a tighter, closed one to showcase HDR's dynamic tone mapping. We also like to focus on contrasting elements in our settings, like ancient human architecture and futuristic combine technology. A monastery fit these requirements perfectly. Monasteries are generally isolated, unlit, and built ages ago. They provide a great backdrop for the contrasting combine technology. When we build fictional settings, we try to ground them by basing them off a real-world location. We use this location as a design constraint that forces a logical consistency behind the art choices.
Yeah, so that's actually another interesting point that he's made there, is the use of I think they've got part of the Combine theme playing. Yeah, the use of older human spaces, like a chapel or a church or whatever, and the juxtaposition with the sort of very hard metallic Combine surfaces creates a really interesting visual aesthetic.
Churches are great dramatic spaces. They're often lit naturally with extremes of darkness and brightness, which makes them a great showcase for HDR. Gothic churches are the sober monochromatic spaces that you've seen in almost every horror movie or game. Byzantine churches, on the other hand, are very colorful and have a large variety of materials.
Whoa,
we wanted that color
there?
and material variety to show off our HDR reflections.
I don't mean to undermine what they're doing, but what the hell? I never noticed that before. I think that's just my game. I don't know why that's happening. I don't think that's supposed to... Well, yeah, it's definitely not supposed to happen. Yeah. Don't need any health. We'll just... Wait, I just wanted to check. That's right. It's so we've got 11 there, 12 there, and now we've got 13. Yep.
Our games are filled with things we call gates, which are essentially just challenges that the player must overcome to drive the experience forward. We used a puzzle here since the player has been through combat and exploration recently.
Yeah.
When we design challenges, we try to ensure that the player's goal and the action required by the player are both fun. It's not hard to create interesting goals for the player, like stopping this machine from shelling the nearby village, but the action required by the player to solve the challenge needs to be fun as well. So instead of something menial, such as hitting an off switch, the player gets to use physics to jam the gun's mechanism and cause it to break.
Yeah. With a little sign saying, don't put anything in there. Yeah, it seems like a distress signal of... Oh god, I forgot about these guys. I forgot that those guys come out of those. Do these break? They do. And that actually makes for real interesting sort of visual lighting effects. I forget how you... Oh, they burst in, that's right. I was like, how do you get out of here again? The Combine burst in, don't they? Or do I fire a rocket out? Probably do both. Okay, that didn't do anything. Oh god. Talk about ambushing. Apparently, I remember reading a thing on shotguns in video games, and there was sort of like an article of sorts that was talking about the way that people create shotguns for their games. And apparently, one of the things that I brought away from that was the fact that apparently the Half-Life 2 shotgun is apparently one of the most accurate shotgun depictions in a video game. Oh god. Ah. Let's get out of here. Ah. Okay. While this is shooting at me...
This marks the end of the Lost Coast tour. This has been an experiment on our part to see if our community would find it interesting to learn more about our development process. As always, we're interested in your feedback. I can be reached at gaben, Gaben, at valvesoftware.com. If people like this, we'll keep producing this kind of content for all of our games going forward. Thanks for listening.
Get a quick cheap shot on him. Yeah, this is another surface that's got a lot of... That's right, I forgot that he can do that. Ow! Damn it. This is another example of a surface that has a lot of breakable stuff. Like, I believe all of these panels can be broken off by the gun turret. The gun ship thing. Yeah. So, we're at the end. I'm just gonna finish off the actual level. Don't know why I'm doing this. Just felt the need to do that. There's still a guy up there. Oh god, that always terrifies me. Ah! It's so far down. Yeah. And then this slowly just makes its way down. And you get to meet the guy down here again. He's waiting for you. He's already waiting. It's kind of spooky. Ah!
You did it, lad. Come on with me to St. Olga. We'll celebrate this victory with a feast. I hope you like leeches. Hey, where you going?
Yeah, supposedly you're supposed to, like...
Getting fuzzy around the edges. Well, I guess you got other places to be. Nice going, yeah.
Yeah. So, I think I was saying this at the start, but yeah, the Lost Coast was originally in Half-Life 2 before it got cut. It was part of the extensive, like, coastal section of the game. Interestingly, the puzzle that he was talking about, I think Robin Walker was talking about, that feature, it was a puzzle that was inside that boat that's now just a shell on the beach. That existed in a very, very old version of the Lost Coast. I have a feeling, yeah, it was around since the leaked stuff. It was around since like the beta or the alpha versions of Half-Life 2. It was also around when, in the original story, there was no ocean. So it was around since before the ocean got added to the game. It's a weird thing to say. But yeah, if anyone isn't familiar with the backstory behind Half-Life 2's development, it's super interesting, to me at least. It's super interesting, because they had a very different idea for what the world was going to be like post Resonance Cascade. So, yeah, that's... if you don't know anything about it, I want to say educate yourself, but that sounds kind of rude. So I would highly recommend looking into the ways in which the game changed quite drastically over its development. I'll give you the one thing or a couple of things of, one of them, yeah, as I said, there was no ocean left. The ocean was just gone. There was huge, vast, almost like deserts, plains of nothing, where oceans used to be. And a lot of the people, a lot of the occupants of the cities had to wear special masks, gas masks, because the world's atmosphere was so poor. It was basically, the Combine were basically harvesting Earth for its resources. And yeah, life was pretty horrible until Gordon comes and starts a rebellion and starts fighting to claim back what was lost. But yeah, the game turned out very different, and we all still love it. A lot of people still love it. I still love it. But it's just really interesting to see how things change over time, and how development changes drastically sometimes. Even, sometimes the story, you think of the story as being a little thing, but still, it would have affected the gameplay, it would have affected the way the game played a hell of a lot in the end. There are a few cool mods and, like, recreations or revitalizations of old acquired maps and stuff from the old versions, and I would recommend seeking them out just for sort of education's sake, if nothing else. Valve News Network, Tyler McVicker, has done a few videos on some really cool old maps from the beta eras of Half-Life 2, and I would definitely recommend checking those out. I don't know if I'll be able to find all of the videos, so I don't know if I'll bother putting links in the description. It's pretty easy to find most of that stuff, and of course, most of you, a good portion of you, know who Valve News Network, who Tyler McVicker is. So you'll be able to find him. You'll be able to find his stuff. Yeah, nevertheless, that will be Lost Coast. So yeah, only one episode of this, purely because of the nature of Lost Coast. I might move on to episode 1 and 2 in the future, but I think I'll leave Half-Life 2 for now with this little mini episode of a developer commentary. If you like what you saw, hit like. If you want to see more developer commentary stuff, you want to see more Let's Plays, more gameplay stuff, more game development stuff, then subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and as always,